So in Turabian chapter 16, we're going to start getting into the nuts and bolts of how to actually do footnotes and bibliography. So we're going to begin with 16.1.1, the order of elements. Now, I might add at this point, chapters 16 and 17, and I would say probably particularly 17, are going to be your go-to chapters in Turabian, time and again, when you are trying to figure out how to do a footnote or a bibliography. So we're going to show you, how to do the most basic ones, but very often you're going to find a book or a journal article or something that it has enough different that it really doesn't quite fit the pattern, and so you're going to have to really look closely in Turabian and try to figure out, how to do it. So the order of elements, it all follows the same general pattern. You need information on author, title, facts of publication, and then also might add page numbers. So authors' names are in standard order in footnotes. It's first name first, and bibliography is last name first. And so if you're citing a specific passage, you'll have page numbers and footnotes. Generally speaking, you do not have page numbers in bibliography. There are a couple of exceptions to that, but we will point those out when we come to them. As far as punctuation goes, a general rule, again, there's exceptions, but a general rule is that you have commas in footnotes and periods in bibliography. 16.1.4, italics and quotation marks. Book titles are in italics. Names of journals are in italics. Journal article titles are in quotation marks. Chapter titles within books are in quotation marks. And also, titles of dictionary articles or encyclopedia articles are in quotation marks. But the name of the dictionary or encyclopedia is in italics. As far as numbers goes, in titles, numbers are spelled out or given in numerals exactly as they are in the original. So basically, every time you have a title of a book or something, you put in that title exactly like it is, I can only think of one exception. If a title has an ampersand in it, you change that to and. But more about that later. So page numbers that are in Roman numerals are kept in Roman numerals. They're put in lowercase. All other numbers are in Arabic numerals. As far as abbreviations go, editor is abbreviated ED period. Translator is abbreviated TRANS period. If there are multiple editors, it's EDS period. Volume is abbreviated VOL period. Edition, ED period. Number is NO period. Footnotes are indented the same amount as a paragraph. So in our papers, we indent paragraphs 1/2 inch. So your footnotes are indented 1/2 inch. But it's not a full indentation, it's the first line. It's just like a paragraph. The first line is indented, but line 2 goes back to the left side. Okay, types of bibliographies. Every paper you write will have a bibliography at the end. A bibliography is a list of the sources that you consulted. Now, there's a couple of types of bibliographies. A true bibliography is a list of not only the sources that are cited in the paper, but it's also a list of sources that were consulted but perhaps not cited. Another type of bibliography is called works cited. And so the bibliography list is simply the works that actually are cited in the paper. So if you cite 12 sources in your paper in the footnotes, your works cited page will have 12 sources. So your professors in your different courses will tell you what they want. In my papers, I like works cited. So I like the sources in the footnotes to match exactly the sources in the works cited page. Okay, 16.2.2. A bibliography is arranged alphabetically by author's last name. If you have bibliographic entries by the same author, they are presented in order of alphabetical by the title of the work. And when you're considering which is alphabetical, you may not consider the word the or a. Now, you notice here that you put the author's name in the bibliography the first time, but the second time in the bibliography, you use 3 em dashes. And we'll talk about em dashes in class. (16.2.3) Sources that may be omitted in a bibliography. You do not have to put newspaper articles. I'm guessing that you will probably never use a newspaper article in a paper here. You could, however, but probably not often. Classical, medieval, and early English literary works. The Bible and other sacred works. So what they mean by that is you do not need to put bibliographic information about the Bible you used in a bibliography. All you really need to do is the first time you cite a verse, just tell us what version you're using. 16.3.1, we are using footnotes. We do not use endnotes. Whenever you refer to or otherwise use material from a source, you must insert into your text a superscript number that directs your reader to a note that gives bibliographic information about that source. Now, all that's saying is you insert a footnote when you need to reference a source. Usually it's going to be at the end of a sentence and it goes outside the period. If the sentence ends in a quote, you know you've got period, quotation mark, and then the footnote number. So it goes outside the quotation mark. There's only one reference number at the same location. So you can't have, in this example here, 5,6, okay? There's one footnote number at that point. You number notes consecutively, beginning with number 1. and it's just consecutive all the way through the paper. If you're doing a master's thesis or a dissertation and you have different chapters, at the beginning of each chapter you restart the numbering at number 1. But for just your normal papers in our classes, they don't have chapters. It's just you start with 1 and number it consecutively. As I mentioned, you use paragraph indents for footnotes. Begin every footnote on the page on which you reference it. So if you have footnote number 4 on page 2, it should appear on page 2. If footnote 4 is on page 3, there's a problem with your formatting. That just can't happen. The footnote has got to be on the same page. Now, Microsoft Word will do that automatically unless you have fouled up the formatting in some way. It says here, put a short rule between the last line of text and the first footnote on each page. Word does that automatically, so don't have to worry about that. Footnotes are single-spaced, and there's a space between footnotes, and we will show you how to do that in class. So what if you have 2 or more sources in one footnote? How do you cite them? Well, you give them full citation and you separate them with a semicolon. That's all you have to do. And here's an example here. But yeah, you just treat it like you would a normal footnote, except you have several in one footnote. You separate them with a semicolon. And it says here that you put the citations in the same order in which the references appear in the text. So that's the basic rule. That's not a hard and fast rule though, but it's probably a good basic one to follow. If a note includes both a citation and a substantive comment, put the citation first with a period after it, followed by the comment in a separate sentence. So a footnote doesn't just have to be the information on the source alone. You can put text in a footnote. However, you need to ask yourself the question, why am I putting this text in the footnote? If it's relevant, why am I not putting it up in the regular text? And if I'm consigning it to a footnote, is it really that necessary? So you need to kind of think about things before you put comments in footnotes. That's what she says here in this paragraph. Be judicious in your use of substantive comments in notes. If a point is critical to your argument, include it in the text. If it is peripheral, think carefully about whether it is important enough to mention in a note. (16.4). Okay. You give complete citation for the first time you cite a work, and then a shortened citation in subsequent notes. So what that's saying is, if you cite a book for the first time in footnote 3, you give the full citation information. Then if you cite that same book later in footnote 8, you just give an abbreviated note. And really, and all that is the author's last name, and then a comma, and then if it's a book, it's followed by the title in italics. If it's a journal article, it's a title in quotation marks, and then a comma, and then the page number, and then a period. We will see examples of that in class. So in this chapter, there's lots of what would you call it? Templates, I guess you would say, for these different kinds of footnotes. So finally, 16.4.2, IBID. So if you, let's say in footnote 2, you cite someone and it's page 80. The very next footnote, footnote 3, you cite the same person and it's page 90. You put IBID, I-B-I-D. It means in the same place. It's Latin for in the same place. I-B-I-D period, comma, and then page 90, and then a period. So let me repeat that. If in a footnote, just for example, footnote 3, you cite some book and it's page 80, that's fine. Later on, in the very next footnote, footnote 4, if you cite the same source but page 90, you put IBID, period, and then comma, and then 90. Now, however, if the second citation is the same page, all you do is put IBID, period. IBID is not capitalized. Italicized. It is capitalized, it's not italicized. And IBID is not the first footnote on a page. So if IBID shows up as the first footnote on a page, what that makes the reader do is go back to the previous page to see what you're talking about. You never do that. You put the citation as the first footnote on a page. Okay, so those are kind of the main points from chapter 16 of Turabian. And next we will look at chapter 17 for specific examples that will help you in your citations.